Hello, everyone, and welcome to Parenting Stuff I Wish I Knew Sooner and Want You to Know Now. I am your host, Erica Desper, founder of the Center for Confident Parenting, and a mom who seems to learn everything the hard way. And now I'm on a mission to talk to parenting experts and also parents who are experts on their own kiddos, just to talk about what we've learned along the way and can share with you. And today I'm super excited for my guest, Shannon. Shannon is a mom of 4 young children, ages 4, 6, 7, and 8. She's in a 2-mom household with some biracial children and various special needs. It's a lot for me to even say. I'm sure it's a lot to live. Shannon, thank you for joining me today.
Excited.
Me too. I have been sort of watching your family grow because we have a professional connection. I just think there's so many amazing aspects of it. I'm sure there's some very challenging aspects of it too. So for anyone that doesn't know your family yet, just tell us a little bit about who you are, how and why you came to be together, and we'll go from there.
So I am married. We are in a same-sex 2-mom household. I met my wife Lindsay about almost 15 years ago, and we got married in 2011. And shortly after that, we were like, we want to have kids. So we started to see what that process would look like for 2 women. It didn't go as originally intended as far as, I mean, we tried to get pregnant for several years through IUI and IVF. So we started looking for alternative options to grow our family. I work with kids with special needs, and there was a little boy whose caseworker came in and said, you mean this child's available for adoption if anybody's interested? And I was like, yes, very
There's
interested.
your alternative.
Right, yeah. I'm like, this baby, like, and he was so cute. Oh my gosh. Um,
That
so
helps.
yeah, we started the process to foster and with the plans to adopt our son, who he is now adopted. His name's Jesse. Um, Jesse has Down syndrome, and I first met Jesse through my work when he was 6 months old. He came home to us when he was 2 and was adopted when he was 3. During that
Awesome.
time of the adoption process to get him home, we had to cross state lines. Not that it was a big state line, but we had to cross state lines. So going between the 2 different states and their rules as far as fostering and adopting and same-sex families. So we had a couple hurdles to get over. We tried to do IVF one more time, and we got pregnant. That was our 8th round of either IUI or IVF. And so we knew Jesse was going to come home, and we got pregnant. It took longer than expected for Jesse to come home. So the way it worked out is Jesse came home September of 2019, and 2 weeks later, Reagan was born 4 weeks early in October of 2019. So we went from 0 kids to 2 kids, one being a 2-year-old with special needs, and now a newborn in the NICU. What did I just do?
That's kind of what I'm thinking.
Right. I was like, what did I just do? But we got the hang of it. There were definitely some issues, some hurdles, some learning curves. At the time, Jesse's adoption wasn't finalized. In order to adopt, the child has to be in your house for a certain period of time before you can even file that paperwork. So there were some things that like we had to get done with that. My son Jesse is biracial, so certain things that have to be done because of that is we had to do a sickle cell anemia test along with other things that we needed just for the adoption itself. So we finalized Jesse's adoption. So now we have 2 kids. Great, awesome. 2 kids, a boy and a girl. We're done, right?
Yep.
Nope. Nope, we weren't done. Another little boy, where I work, this was during COVID. So the way our structure was a little different during COVID times. We were with one kid for majority of the day to eliminate spreading risk of germs, things like that. So I was with this little boy for 8 to 10 hours a day. And one of the things I would do with him is Zoom calls with his caseworker, uh, just because the caseworkers weren't allowed in the building because of COVID, but they still needed to see the child, talk about the child, things like that. And I do the Zoom call, and she said, well, this is going to be my last time with him because now he's getting a pre-adoptive caseworker. And I'm like, he's available for adoption?
The
Introducing
magic words.
RJ. Yeah. So introducing RJ. RJ's entire process was so much quicker than Jesse's. I think because it was during COVID. With Jesse, we did little outings and we would take him out to lunch. We would do a day trip. He would come spend one night and then go back to the facility. With RJ, we went to visit him twice, and it had to be outside and it had to be at the distance. So I would go and I would be with RJ, and Lindsay would have Jesse and Reagan, and we would be on like opposite sides of the playground. We're like, say hi. And that was really their introduction to RJ. And 2 weeks later, we brought him home, and he was home. And then RJ's adoption journey was also different than Jesse's. At the time of Jesse's adoption, his birth parents were no longer involved. At the time of RJ's, when he came home to us, birth mom was still very much involved and trying to see what she could do to be reunited with him. Ultimately, that did not happen, and we were able to move forward with adoption. So when you adopt with our agency, they close your house for 6 months. So Jesse was adopted in August, and we met RJ. We started talking about RJ coming home. So technically, our house is closed right now. It was October, and we had to do a couple things real quick as far as home inspections. Everything was still in the system because we had just adopted Jesse. So RJ was able to come home very quickly. RJ's adoption was then finalized that next summer in July. And then during the first week of school, so like September, we got a phone call about a placement for a little girl who is our current foster daughter. And as it would be, I also know her from my previous work. So I did have a connection with her prior to her coming in my house. The dynamic is definitely different because she knew me more as a therapy role and just like a passerby, whereas now I'm more the mom role. So ultimately, you mean right now our house is still open. We still do have an open foster case going on. And then we have our 2 boys with special needs that are adopted. And we have Reagan, who is our typical sassy little self. Throw her right in the mix.
What
And
an
that's,
amazing,
yeah.
from like, we can't get pregnant and the drama of trying that 8 times, which I just hope that gives hope to somebody out there that's, maybe on one of those earlier times and thinking this is never going to come together. I can't even tell you how many times I've heard that story of we stopped trying, kind of relaxed about it or gave up on it or whatever, and looked at another avenue, and then boom, now we have a pregnancy, a biological kid, and then an adopted or fostered or whatever. Like there must be something about going like, okay, I make peace with this, and the body goes, oh yeah.
Ultimately, I think that's what it was too, that I was just like, okay. I was like, I
Yes.
knew that, you mean that my baby, was not necessarily going to be from me. But when I saw Jesse, I was like, that's my baby.
Right.
So I knew that my
Yeah.
baby was going to come home. I was like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And can you speak a little? So we know Jesse has Down syndrome.
Yeah.
RJ, did you want to speak to what his needs are? I know they feel a little more complicated to me.
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll start with Jesse. Jesse does have Down syndrome. Since he's been with us, we have gotten a diagnosis of autism as well. We're finding more and more that Down syndrome and autism are coming to be more a dual diagnosis than
Okay.
previously thought.
Hmm.
Um, and along with there's certain things with Jesse that I'm still not sure if that's the Down syndrome playing a role in whatever our current
Hmm.
issue might be, or if it's the autism playing a role, or the combo of the two for him.
Yep.
Um, but so Jesse has Down syndrome, he has autism, he is considered nonverbal, he does not speak, and he is also still considered non-ambulatory, so he does not walk. Um, Walking, as far as like the diagnosis of non-ambulatory, he would have to be able to complete his day independently on his feet, and he's not able to do that right now.
I was going to
Um,
say, because I walked with him at the walk.
yep. So
It was super exciting.
just as of last year, it was 2022 in November, he took his first steps and he was 6 years old. So that was very exciting.
Very.
Um, we just finished a round of PT at DuPont, and the starting um, measurement for his walking with the PT on the first week was 50 feet. And at the end of our 8-week sessions, he did 225 feet, which is awesome for him. So we just got to keep building that stamina
Congratulations.
and hope that he can continue to go with his walking. But so that's Jesse. Jesse also has a feeding tube. So
Oh,
he has a
that's what
G
I was
tube.
thinking of.
He has a G tube. It's in his stomach, and he gets his water and medication through that tube. He does not take thin liquids by mouth orally. He's not safe for that. He doesn't know what to do with it once it's in there. That is part of the Down syndrome. The muscles, very kind of floppy muscles all around. So that goes to the walking. His legs are kind of like floppy, that low muscle tone. It's
Mhm.
also the same thing in the throat. I mean, I didn't realize how much muscle goes into swallowing a thin liquid
Sure.
to keep your airway safe in that
Right.
aspect, because we just take a drink.
Right.
Um, so that's Jesse in a nutshell. And then RJ has a history of a drug overdose that resulted in a traumatic brain injury, which is a TBI for short.
Mhm.
On top of that, RJ also has autism. Since he's been with us, he's also been diagnosed with cerebral palsy and epilepsy. We're unsure if the cerebral palsy and epilepsy were present prior to the drug overdose, or if they are a result
Mhm.
of the drug overdose and just how his brain is functioning now. Um, both boys have had great gains. When Jesse came to us, he received formula through his G tube. Now he eats all of his food by mouth. It's a different texture. Everything's a pureed, so like a yogurt mashed potato texture. But all of his calories are through his mouth, which is awesome. When RJ came to us, he also had a G tube, and his G tube is out. It's no longer even there, um, which is also
Very
awesome.
exciting.
I was say
Yeah.
when RJ came to us, he was nonverbal. He is still considered nonverbal, but he has so many more words now and is really working on expressing himself. And that's where we see the autism come into play. So all behavior is communication, and
Yeah.
we're both really learning that.
And who uses a communication device?
So both boys have their own. RJ's is more a typical communication device that people think of, as far as it's a mini iPad. He has different buttons. He can touch to tell us his wants and needs, make a sentence,
Hmm.
things like that. Jesse's communication is PECS, which is the picture exchange
Mhm.
communication, but it also has a tangible and voice output component.
Okay.
So on Jesse's device, it's a Prox pad. So it's about this big, and there will be the PEC, so the picture of what we're talking about. If we're going to get ready to eat, so there's a
Mhm.
spoon. Then there will also be an actual spoon,
Mhm.
and then a voice output part that will say spoon or eat.
Okay.
So Jesse's is a little bit more involved and not as streamlined as RJ's device.
Mhm.
You mean RJ can carry his device around with him, whereas Jesse, I call it his suitcase of communication, uh, because it is just a very large computer bag with all these different tangible uh,
Right.
prompts. So he gets a visual, he gets a physical, tactile. You mean this is what we're talking about, and then he gets that auditory input as well, as far as this is what we're talking about.
Right. Gotcha.
Um,
It's
and
amazing.
the
It's
hope
a
with
lot.
that is that he will. It is. um, the hope with Jesse is that he will see the peck and hear the auditory output and start putting those together, and we can go for a more streamlined device, typical or similar to what RJ has.
Excellent. And then your foster daughter.
Mhm.
Did we talk about her needs?
Not yet. Uh,
Oh man.
so, my foster daughter has what's called short gut syndrome. When she was born, her intestines did not function the way that they should. She ultimately ended up having most of her small intestine and her bowel removed in order to stop infections and things in her body. Because of that, when she was younger, she had a colostomy bag, and she has a central line, which we use for TPN feedings. She also has a G tube that we use for formula feedings. The short gut syndrome is majority of her medical needs. She also has cerebral palsy. She also has a cognitive delay. But most of her medical stuff is from the short gut. So the TPN is something that we do right now 3 nights a week, which is awesome because it used to be 7 nights a week.
Ooh.
Um, she has a central line right in her chest. Um, Me or my wife will access the line. We have to prep her TPN. We add vitamins. We add different medications that are all prescribed by her doctors and her GI team at DuPont. And then we hang her TPN bag, and it runs overnight while she's sleeping. Along with that, she also has an overnight feed that runs into her G tube. The whole thing with her is to try to gain weight, maintain weight. She does not eat a lot by mouth, but we are working on that. She has gained uh, weight since being with us for the past year. And our ultimate goal for her would be to get that central line out so that she can have more of a quality of life. With the central line, she can't get a shower because the line can't get wet. So her bath is very low water, a lot of keep your head back. We do have dressings that we can cover it, but you mean as water gets on something sticky, it does start to come off. But we have to keep that line clean, clear, free of infection, knock on wood, so that we can keep her out of the hospital and safe and healthy and continuing to do great things with her medical needs. But
Wow. That's so amazing. And I'm just wondering, I mean, okay, I would not be up for this, Shannon. I can tell you right now. First of all, I'm not up for 4 kids, but that's just me personally. I have one, I'm one and done. So that says a little bit about what I'm up for. Um, but I guess my question is this possible for you because of your professional background? There's a lot of medical needs here that would kind of freak me out. So is this something like the average person could take on? Or is this something better taken on if you have a bit of background?
I think it's good to have a bit of a background because my kids are foster and adopted. I think if this was Reagan and I didn't have the background, I would, do everything I possibly could, for your child, I think
Sure.
much like any other parent. Um, but because of my background and also because I knew these kids
Mm,
before they were my kids, which is kind of a funny thing to say. Um, I knew their personalities, I knew their medical needs. We knew what we were getting into.
sure.
Um, that made it a little easier. Whereas if and as a foster family, we have turned down kids. Um, and that's if people are interested in fostering, it is an option. You don't have to take every kid that they call about.
Right.
And we have. And the first time I turned down a kid, I felt horrible. And I was like, but at the time, it just wasn't their needs with the needs of the children
Right.
that we have in the house now. I was like, that's too much. That's wave the
Right.
white
Right. Right.
flag. Nope.
Yeah.
Um,
And
and
does your partner, your wife, she have a medical background as well, or is this solely like okay?
no, the medical stuff is me. Lindsay works for in an IT department for a water company.
Oh, totally not medical at all.
No, not
So the
medical
learning curve may have been a little greater for
on her,
her.
but
Yeah.
asking her, and somebody just asked her the other day if she thought, like, when she met me, would did she know that we were going to have kids with special needs and that we would foster and we would adopt and do these things? And she was like, I knew immediately. I was like, really? I didn't. I was
Isn't
like,
that
that's
funny?
funny. Like, right. I was like, it's my background and I didn't think this would be
Right? This
my
was your
my
mission and you didn't even know it.
right. Yeah. And Lindsay's like, no, I knew. And I was like, oh, okay.
But how amazing for each of these kids and all of them collectively to cross paths with someone who has the ability and the desire and the willingness to take them on,
Mhm.
because I don't think that just anybody could do that and do that as well as you two are doing.
No.
Congratulations on your family.
Thank
It's
you.
just such an amazing story. So, okay, so now that we have all the facts out there, do you realize it took 22 minutes to tell us
To explain my
to
family.
explain your family? Oh my gosh, I love it. Okay, so what I'm going to flip my questions actually. What are the biggest joys that you experience with respect to this family dynamic that you have with all the blending and all the needs and all of that? Like, what do you love about it?
I think seeing the small things. So the fact that Jesse was 6 years old the first time he took his independent steps, something we had been working on with him since the minute he came home. Um, Jesse eating by mouth all his calories. Again, something we had been working on prior to him coming home. Um, and things like that. And seeing Jesse, like, so going kid by kid, um, seeing his educational goals right now, and that he is doing things that maybe a couple years ago, cognitively, we didn't think he would be able to do.
Mhm.
And he definitely still has um, some challenges in his educational day, but just seeing that, Jesse does know his numbers right now from 1 to 5, and he will pick out a number if you request it. It's like, wow, that's I didn't know he could do that. So that's awesome that Jesse does know his name and he can point to his name in the classroom um, setup to say that he's here today for school. So
Mhm.
I'm like, okay, he knows that. People have asked us before, like, how will we explain adoption to Jesse? And I'm
Mm,
like, I think Jesse knows that we're his people. So that's how we explain adoption to Jesse.
right.
Um, as far as joys for RJ, is seeing him, this like vocal and verbal outburst we've had lately, this explosion of words, and him being able to tell me, you mean mommy apple juice? I'm like, okay, you want apple juice. I was like, that's so much easier than,
It's
you mean,
both so small and so huge,
yes,
right?
right. And then 2 years ago when him wanting a drink and not having the the setup, the communication, the skills to tell me that. And now it's just like, "Mommy, apple juice?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure. Here, have some apple juice."
I mean,
Um,
who would not give apple juice in that scenario?
yeah. And it also goes, you mean mommy chippies? I'm like, yeah, sure.
Right.
You want chippies? Go for it. Um,
Totally
but then
get it.
also the little things of now he knows how to ask for it, but now he also has the fine motor skills to just go and open the chips by himself. So I'm like, oh, you don't even need me. Like, you can open your own snack.
Yeah, and it's amazing, obviously if you have more typical kids with fewer challenges or no challenges, you're not even going to notice some of those things. But when you work that hard for that long to get to something that small, it's just so big. And that's great that you're able to, savor it. And it's like a huge win for everybody.
So yeah, little things, communication, education. Um, I think those are our main like
Mhm.
little daily goals. Um, with Reagan, it's just so awesome to see her as far as caring for
Mm.
her brothers. Um, and it's funny because she is 4 years old and she calls herself the big sister, even though she's 2 to 3 years younger. And I was like,
Because
"You're
she
the
was
little sister."
because she was there first.
She was there first, but I think she sees it because like she can do
Because of
certain
how she
things
cares for them.
right,
Yeah.
and she knows that the boys,
More of a
maybe
caregiver.
can't do this certain thing. So
I can't
she's like,
even imagine what her mission is going to be when she gets to it with
I
having
was,
grown up in
yeah,
this
I
environment.
would say at least like a nurse or
Hmm.
special education. I see her doing something. But then even with her typical peers at school, like she includes everybody, which is
Sure.
nice to see.
Yeah.
Um, and she accepts answers. So if we go to an event that's for kids with special needs, and you mean, mommy, why do they have a tube? Oh, they have a tube just like Jesse has a tube. Okay,
It's just a
like
matter of fact. Yeah.
right. She's like, oh, okay. And
Everybody's
or
different.
she's very appropriate to point out like they have a wheelchair just like Jesse's wheelchair. I'm like, yeah, they do. Whereas other adults, I think, trip
Right.
over that, and they're like,
Yep.
your stroller. I'm like, no, it's a wheelchair. It's fine. You can call it what it is. It's a wheelchair.
Right. Yeah. We're all so nervous about saying the wrong thing that sometimes we just make it worse, right?
Right.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm sure there's so many joys sprinkled in throughout the day. What about the challenges? You've obviously overcome and adapted to so many of them, but I don't know if you want to answer this going back in time or just what the current challenges are. Um, and with respect to anything, fostering, adopting, special needs, the blended children, the being a same
Yeah.
sex couple. Um, I just imagine you navigating the world with this brood and everyone doesn't look the same, right? And there's got to be a lot of like, whatever, noticing that. And I'm sure it
Yeah.
comes with a lot of challenges. So what do you feel is the most challenging thing right now or back then?
Um, ultimately, I think the most challenging thing is making sure that Reagan gets the time that she deserves
Hmm.
because the other kids do take up so much of our time with their medical needs
Yeah,
or special needs. Um, whereas Reagan, I can say, Reagan, go get a snack. Reagan, go get yourself something to drink.
right.
While I have to prep formula for my foster daughter or um, get meds ready for the boys. So it's not, I feel like I'm prioritizing and I don't want to do that. I want all my children to feel like they're treated equally, but there are some certain medical things that have to take precedent in the day. And I mean, that unfortunately means that I can't do dress up right now with Reagan. So trying to find the balance between the special needs and my typical daughter. It would
Yeah,
definitely be the challenge right now.
I can
Um,
imagine that.
but ultimately, the challenges throughout. You mean the day, like the days are long and the years are short. Is
Hmm.
that? Is that the saying?
Something like that.
Yeah,
We'll call it that.
I'm like, is that it? Um, but yeah, but like looking back now and the things that were a challenge, you mean just one chapter ago or two chapters ago, are not the challenge for the
Mm.
chapter we're in now, and they're definitely not going to be the whole book.
And I think
So,
that's honestly true. I don't think that has so much to do with everything you've told us so far. I think that's just the nature of parenting and maybe just life is like, I found that with my own son. Like, first of all, I had to make peace with the fact that there would always be a challenge. Something would always feel challenging. He's just not an easy kid. One of the reasons I just did one. But then I also had to realize that whatever felt challenging would not feel challenging forever. It would ease up. It would also be replaced by something else that felt challenging. But then, it kind of all, just nothing is forever. The good, the bad, none of it. And I can definitely relate to that. You mentioned the balance, and that made me think of where in this picture is there time for Shannon or Shannon and Lindsay? There just are so many needs that sound to me very time consuming, very energy intensive. So what do you do to refill your own cup, if that's even a thing? And how do you make that happen in all of this?
we have a really good balance, which is nice. So, as far as I'm more of a night owl, Lindsay's more of a morning person. So, there are certain meds that our foster daughter has that have to go up at a certain time. Right now, that time is 11 p.m.
Mhm.
Lindsay's normally asleep by that time, but those meds have to come down, and the morning routine starts about 5:30 in the morning.
Mm,
So if it was just me doing that, that's 11 p.m. I'm hanging a med, and then you mean I need my time to settle down and go to sleep, and then 5:30 we're up, we're ready to go. We have to start meds and have the lunches and get everybody dressed and out the door. So Lindsay is a morning person, which is great. So I'll stay up late. Lindsay will do the morning stuff, and then we kind of meet in the middle. Um, so that's like the day to day. But that also gives us time to kind of relax. I would say on the other parent's time.
right.
So she lets me
So almost
sleep
like
in a
shift
little.
work.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
So she lets me sleep in a little. She goes to bed, and I take the nighttime shift.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, but as far as like just refilling and finding time for us, we've definitely gotten opportunities this year more, I think, than in the past 4 years that we've had children. Um, we've been finding more time for to do things that we like. So whether it's a concert or a show, or even going to a movie for a couple hours, and we had to be okay with it. Like we're not going to have a Friday night date night most likely, because finding a babysitter that one can be okay with our kids and I trust with our kids and all the medical needs, there's still that chance that I'm going to get the phone call of RJ had a seizure. You mean something happened to foster daughter?
Hmm.
Jesse had this, whatever. So, boom, we're going to change and shift and take care of that right now. Um, but so we had, like, for Valentine's Day coming up, we are going to a morning, it's like a board and brush painting with a twist type thing, except it's mosaic, making a Turkish lamp.
Ooh, I've
I
seen
know, it
those.
looked really cool.
I love that
But
kind of stuff.
it's at 11 a.m. So all the
Okay.
kids will be in school. So we can go do that together. We can have Valentine's Day and do our couple thing. It's just not going to be at
You
night.
just have to think of it differently.
Right. So I mean, we'll do a noon movie and be out and home in time for bus pickup, but we still got to go see the movie.
Right?
So we still got our time together.
Just a little
Uh,
outside the box.
right. We
I mean,
just
look,
went.
everything else about your family is outside the box. So
Yeah.
your date nights can be too.
What? Yeah. What box?
There's no box. What is a box?
Yeah. Yeah. We are a triangle,
I love it.
octagon. Yeah. I don't know. We're definitely not a box.
It's okay.
Oh my gosh.
More of
I
the
mean, maybe
caregiver.
can't do this certain thing. So
I can't
she's like,
even imagine what her mission is going to be when she gets to it with having
as is,
grown up in
yeah,
this environment.
I would say at least like a nurse or
Hmm.
special education. I see her doing something. But then even with her typical peers at school, like she includes everybody, which is
Sure.
nice to see.
Yeah.
Um, and she accepts answers. So if we go to an event that's for kids with special needs, and you mean, mommy, why do they have a tube? Oh, they have a tube just like Jesse has a tube. Okay,
It's just a
like
matter of fact. Yeah.
right. She's like, oh, okay. And
Everybody's
or
different.
she's very appropriate to point out like they have a wheelchair just like Jesse's wheelchair. I'm like, yeah, they do. Whereas other adults, I think, trip
Right.
over that, and they're like,
Yeah.
your stroller. I'm like, no, it's a wheelchair. It's fine. You can call it what it is. It's a wheelchair.
Right. Yeah. We're all so nervous about saying the wrong thing that sometimes we just make it worse, right?
Right.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm sure there's so many joys sprinkled in throughout the day. What about the challenges? You've obviously overcome and adapted to so many of them, but I don't know if you want to answer this going back in time or just what the current challenges are. Um, and with respect to anything, fostering, adopting, special needs, the blended children, the being a same
Yeah.
sex couple. Um, I just imagine you navigating the world with this brood and everyone doesn't look the same, right? And there's got to be a lot of like, whatever, noticing that. And I'm sure it
Yeah.
comes with a lot of challenges. So what do you feel is the most challenging thing right now or back then?
Um, ultimately, I think the most challenging thing is making sure that Reagan gets the time that she deserves
Hmm.
because the other kids do take up so much of our time with their medical needs
Yeah.
or special needs. Um, whereas Reagan, I can say, Reagan, go get a snack. Reagan, go get yourself something to drink.
Right.
While I have to prep formula for my foster daughter or um, get meds ready for the boys. So it's not, I feel like I'm prioritizing and I don't want to do that. I want all my children to feel like they're treated equally, but there are some certain medical things that have to take precedent in the day. And I mean, that unfortunately means that I can't do dress up right now with Reagan. So trying to find the balance between the special needs and my typical daughter. It would
Yeah.
definitely be the challenge right now.
I can
Um,
imagine that.
but ultimately, the challenges throughout, the day, like the days are long and the years are short. Is
Hmm.
that is that the saying?
Something like that.
Yeah,
We'll call it that.
yeah, I'm like, is that it? Um, but yeah, but like looking back now and the things that were a challenge, just one chapter ago or two chapters ago are not the challenge for the
Mm.
chapter we're in now, and they're definitely not going to be the whole book.
And I think
So,
that's honestly true. I don't think that has so much to do with everything you've told us so far. I think that's just the nature of parenting and maybe just life is like, I found that with my own son. Like, first of all, I had to make peace with the fact that there would always be a challenge. Something would always feel challenging. He's just not an easy kid. Um, one of the reasons I just did one. But then I also had to realize that whatever felt challenging would not feel challenging forever. It would ease up. It would also be replaced by something else that felt challenging. But then, it kind of all, just nothing is forever. The good, the bad, none of it. And I can definitely relate to that. You mentioned the balance, and that made me think of where in this picture is there time for Shannon or Shannon and Lindsay? There just are so many needs that sound to me very time consuming, very energy intensive. So what do you do to refill your own cup, if that's even a thing? And how how do you make that happen in all of this?
we have a really good balance, which is nice. So, as far as I'm more of a night owl, Lindsay's more of a morning person. So there are certain meds that our foster daughter has that have to go up at a certain time. Right now, that time is 11 p.m. Lindsay's normally asleep by that time, but those meds have to come down, and the morning routine starts about 5:30 in the morning. So if it was just me doing that, that's 11 p.m. I'm hanging a med, and then I need my time to settle down and go to sleep, and then 5:30 we're up, we're ready to go. We have to start meds and have the lunches and get everybody dressed and out the door. So Lindsay is a morning person, which is great. So I'll stay up late. Lindsay will do the morning stuff, and then we kind of meet in the middle. So that's like the day to day. But that also gives us time to kind of relax, I would say, on the other parent's time.
Right.
So she lets me
So
sleep
almost like
in a
shift
little.
work.
Yeah. Yeah. So she lets me sleep in a little. She goes to bed, and I take the nighttime shift. But as far as like just refilling and finding time for us, we've definitely gotten opportunities this year more, I think, than in the past 4 years that we've had children. We've been finding more time to do things that we like. So whether it's a concert or a show, or even going to a movie for a couple hours, and we had to be okay with it. Like, we're not going to have a Friday night date night most likely, because finding a babysitter that one can be okay with our kids and I trust with our kids and all the medical needs, there's still that chance that I'm going to get the phone call of RJ had a seizure. Something happened to foster daughter. Jesse had this, whatever. So boom, we're going to change and shift and take care of that right now. But so we had, like, for Valentine's Day coming up, we are going to a morning, it's like a board and brush painting with a twist type thing, except it's mosaic, making a Turkish lamp.
Ooh, I've
I
seen
know, it
those.
looked really cool.
I love that
But
kind of stuff.
it's at 11 a.m. So all the kids will be in school. So we can go do that together. We can have Valentine's Day and do our couple thing. It's just not going to be at
You
night.
just have to think of it differently.
Right. So I mean, we'll do a noon movie and be out and home in time for bus pickup, but we still got to go see the movie.
Right.
So we still got our time together.
Just a little outside the box.
Right. We
I mean,
just
look,
went.
everything else about your family's outside the box. So
Yeah.
your date nights can be too.
What? Yeah. What box?
There's no box. What is a box?
No. Yeah. We are a triangle.
I love it.
Octagon. Yeah. I don't know. We're definitely not a box. Sorry.
And you mentioned a retreat, I think, when we
Yep.
were prepping for this. What is that, something through like respite care?
So we do have options for respite care for the boys and for our foster daughter.
Yeah, go ahead. It's okay.
Oh my gosh. Respite care for our foster daughter is a little different than for the boys, because she actually has to go to another approved foster home
Okay.
for that time. Whereas respite care for the boys is more anybody that we deem appropriate and capable of caring for them, and we can do like respite care within our home.
Okay.
So most of the time that's a family friend or trusted friend to do that. But the retreat we went on was through the Down Syndrome Association of Delaware, and it was specifically for moms of kids with Down syndrome. And much like we're talking about now, it's what are the challenges, what are the joys, and things that I wanted to get out of it. And maybe not so much right now, but looking ahead, is I talked to a mom whose son is an adult, and I wanted to know, what does guardianship look like for your adult child with special needs? What was your process for select services for a male? Because they still have to register for the select services, which would be if we ever had a draft again for the war or military.
Wow.
So we still have to, as you mean a boy mom, we're still going to have to do that with Jesse
Right.
and RJ. But there are different steps because they are special needs, and that would not be an appropriate path for them.
Sure.
Um,
But you get
but
to do all
even
the fun red tape anyway.
right, yeah. So, and I just like, what does that look like? Do I need a lawyer now? What does guardianship of your adult child with special needs look like?
Mhm.
And they're like, oh, you have so long. I'm like,
Mhm.
I know we have so long, but I still want to know what
And
it
what
looks
comes
like
with it.
and what's the financial component
Right.
to that, as far as, do I need to start putting away money for a lawyer? Um,
Mhm.
we talked about um, the retreat. We talked about a lot of joys and a lot of things, but then we also just swapped stories of what what CPAP mask worked best for your child with Down syndrome. Um, You mean, what spoon did you use to get your child to accept food in their mouth?
Right.
What shoes do you wear to go over the orthotics?
Mm,
So just little things like that that are part
right.
of our normal day to day. I mean, we found the shoes that fit. We found the CPAP mask that works. We found, um, just the different little things. And now we're good. And that chapter's done and we can move
Right.
on to the next chapter. But when
Well,
you're
and your
in that,
challenges are so specific. You can't just have the ordinary village. You need a village of
right.
people who have experienced those types of questions and challenges.
Yeah, so it was interesting because somebody was like, somebody said they just realized that they're going to have to probably buy diapers for the foreseeable future. And most of us think of diapers being done around 2 or 3.
Right.
And it's like, well, no, I have a 6 and 7-year-old that are still using diapers. They're like, how do you do that? I'm like, oh, call your insurance company. You can get
Mhm.
diapers, you can get things, and people just don't know.
Right.
Much like this retreat, we found a group. A Mother's Rest. And they do
Mhm.
retreats like this all over the country for
What a
moms with kids with
beautiful
special needs.
organization.
And even if it's just that time for you mean one person in the parenting to be away and have that time, or we were lucky enough that we had both people, like both of our parents,
Mhm.
me and Lindsay both got to go, um, to just talk about, you mean, your kid, because at the end of the day you love your kid. There are challenges and there are frustrations, but you love that kid.
Yep, absolutely. I'm so glad you both got to do that. I did not prep you for this question, so forgive me. But going back to what you were talking about earlier about the things that the boys have accomplished and learned to do, um, I know you can speak to this very passionately. Can you talk about a little bit about presuming competence? Like, I think we make assumptions about kids with needs, or they'll never be able to get out of diapers. And sometimes that's the case. Other times we just don't know that they're capable of getting through the toilet training process with,
Yep.
appropriate accommodations and tools. Same with communication. So why do you think, having this experience with these kiddos, why is it so important to presume competence? Or is that even what we should be doing?
Always. I think we always have to set the bar, you mean, higher, and still aim for the stars. And you mean, we're going to find a happy medium.
Mhm.
Um, Specifically with potty training, both boys have surprised me so much in what they are capable of doing. Even if it's they go and use the potty appropriately one time a day. I'm like,
Mhm.
that's one time a day that I did not know you could do, and shame on me for
Right.
not.
Right.
For yeah, benefit of the doubt that you can do this.
Mhm.
And then I think there's also the other side of it where people see specifically my children and they're like, "Oh, they can't do anything." I'm like, "Yes, they can. They're fine." I'm like,
Right.
Don't coddle them.
Mhm.
Don't hold their hand as far as whatever we're talking about in this situation, because they can absolutely do it. But if you give them that coddle, if you give them that, like, "Oh, I will do that for you." they're absolutely going to take it. They're
That's
like,
just, and I
okay,
think that's any
right.
kid.
Yeah. Like, okay, you want to do this for me? You go ahead.
Particularly the ages that they are.
Yeah. I'm like, no, 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 no. I'm like, they can do that. Don't do that for them.
Yeah.
So yeah, and
Yeah.
just I mean, different things that we're learning every day about them, about ourselves, and even presumed competence for myself. Like, can I do this? I didn't know I could do
Right.
this. Well, I'm doing it, so I guess I can do it.
Good thing. Good thing you can. My goodness. Yeah, I think that's really important for us all to remember. And I think sometimes it's just about modifying the task or giving a tool that can help it be within their reach. Fortunately, in the special needs community, there are lots and lots of tools. But even with our typical kids, if they aren't capable of the step that you're asking them to do, like, so break it down. Like, what are they capable of? Let's work on that. And then, they can't pull their pants up and down. Maybe potty training is going to be a challenge. So let's focus on doing that or eliminating it somehow. So I'm a big fan of that. Back to the fostering. If a person or a parent is interested in fostering a child, where or how would you suggest they start just even information gathering? What avenues are available to them?
Start with whatever your state is. So your state's child development or child family unit. So it's different. It's called different things in different states. Um, I think New Jersey is DFS, Division of Family Services. Um, so whatever your family service unit is in your state, start there. There would be some type of foster parent classes. We took ours, I think it was 12-week program, and they went over just the different things, like what expectations for the house, financial expectations for you, and then expectations for the kids. And that's where you'll learn more about. Um, we there's a whole bunch of stuff about like the trauma, like the reason the child is in foster care
Mhm,
is traumatic.
mhm.
It might not seem it, or it might have been like, well, this one instance and then they were removed. Yeah, that's what it looks like on the surface, but what were they in before that? So there is that trauma. Where did
Okay.
they go that night? If they went to an emergency placement, if there was not an emergency placement and they went and spent the night in the hospital because that's where a bed was, what was that? Um, so all of that trauma you will learn about in the foster parent classes. And then at the end of that, we were certified to foster in our state of Delaware. Um, I'll tell you now, they will look at your financial stuff. They need to know that you can financially support your household
Mhm.
without um, the stipend that will come to help assist caring for the foster child. When I say stipend, this is not going to pay your bills. You are not buying a brand new car. This is to assist in covering the water, food, electricity,
Mhm.
and clothing needed for that child that you're now taking in.
Okay.
Um, I saw a lot of people kind of drop out when they got more into that
Mm,
financial component.
mhm.
And then also people dropped out when they started talking about the trauma
Mm,
that the kids you're bringing into your home could have witnessed or been exposed to.
yeah. Which is probably
um,
a good thing. I think that's why they have that information built in there, so you know what you're getting into. And of course, I think I don't know if it's a misconception or it was based on fact in the past, but that people would foster for the stipend, but then they wouldn't give good care. So all those annoying rules, I'm sure that they're in place for really good reasons. That's great though, that it sounds very, very thorough to get everybody really prepared and filter out people who will never be or aren't right now.
and I
Awesome.
mean, if you have a child in mind, so like Jesse, we were interested,
Right.
we knew we wanted to adopt Jesse. Um, so after we did our foster parent classes, we went to a private adoption agency and we also had to do their classes.
Okay.
Um, because at the time we had just moved to the state of Delaware. Delaware required us to get all of our backgrounds done in our previous state, which was Pennsylvania. So we had to do all the background checks in Pennsylvania. We had to do all the background checks in Delaware. Jesse was from New Jersey, so we had to do everything in New Jersey as well. So technically, we are licensed to parent in 3 states.
So I think you need to start your own podcast, and I'm naming it Licensed to Parent.
You are the second person to suggest that in like 2 weeks.
I love it. I will promote the heck out of it for you. I'm so fascinated with your family, as everybody can tell, and I feel so grateful that I came to know about you guys the way that I did, and get to see the kids grow and accomplish all these things, and it's helped me learn about a lot of things that were just never even on my radar, and hopefully I will do that for someone else as well. I super appreciate your time. I have one more question I want to ask before we wrap up. Um, what is one thing that you've learned on this parenting journey that you just told us about? Hopefully something we haven't touched on yet, that you wish you had come to find out sooner and can share with somebody now.
I think ultimately, whatever your plan is, whether it's the plan of how your child will come to be, whether that's getting pregnant or IVF, like getting pregnant naturally or IVF, or what your plan is for that child, whether it's a boy or a girl, or what they will become, it's not going to be that. It's not. And be okay with that early on, and things will go a lot smoother, and will be easier in the fact that, well, you knew it wasn't going to come out like that, so it had to come out some way, and this is how it's going to come out, whatever's in front of you right now. And ultimately what is hard now is not going to be hard a year from now, and whatever
Absolutely.
chapter you're in now is not the whole book.
I love that so much. Okay, we're going to talk. You're working on the podcasting. Like, you need more on your plate, right? I just out of nowhere added to your
Okay.
heaping plate. I love that. The chapter you're in right
I
now,
love
it's not
talking
the
about my
whole
kids.
book.
Yeah.
You can tell it comes across. I really hope on each of their levels, wherever they are with cognition, I really hope that at some point they can know or even just feel, what you two really had to go through and the hurdles you had to overcome. Like, you really, really wanted them here. And look, we all want our kids here. We all love them to pieces, but you guys really selected them. And all the parts of them. And I just think it's such a beautiful thing. Shannon, thank you so much for joining me, and your birds in the background. They wanted to be our mascots today. There's usually a mascot. One time we had a dog. I love it. The more the merrier. Listeners, I'm sure I'll have you on again. There's just so much to talk about, but I will be back soon with more stuff that I and others wish that we knew sooner. In the meantime, I'll sign off as always with the list of stuff I learned the hardest way. Ask for help when it's offered. Accept help when it's offered. Ask for it when it isn't. You're the expert on your child. Trust your gut. And if you need to be the squeaky wheel. Thank you for listening, everyone.
Bye.